Welcome to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. I'm Andia, a licensed addiction counselor, and along with my co-host, Laura Kissman, a quantum nutritionist, we will be inviting expert scientists, clinicians, survivors, and thrivers to distill their pearls of wisdom attained from applying quantum biology to their fields of research and everyday lives. Our goal is to bring you easy to understand principles and practices about the study of light, water, and magnetism so you can take your health into your own hands. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. We have a repeat guest today. Welcome back, Rachel Maurice. So for those of you who haven't listened to the first episode we did with Rachel, she is episode 20. So you're going to want to go back to that episode. She shares her story, and I'm going to introduce her in a second. But one of the reasons the main reason we're having her back on today is because she had mentioned at the end of the episode about a patch, an X39 patch, and her mom's incredible story, which she may hit on today again. But we wanted to have her back because it was kind of like a to be continued. So we're going to dive into it today and all the science behind it and all the fun quantum stuff and the light and all the things. But first, I want to just introduce her in case you have not heard episode 20. So Rachel Maurice, MD, is a Canadian medical doctor who has left the practice of conventional medicine in 2021 in pursuit of helping people heal from root causes of disease rather than only treating symptoms. She's a trained specialist in anesthesiology. She practiced for 20 years in British Columbia, Canada, and she's also a certified breathwork instructor, Reiki first and second degree, and a certified medical intuition through ICMI, certified freedom from self-sabotage coach, certified cancer prevention coach, holographic memory resolution practitioner, and board certified in applied quantum biology. So welcome back, Rachel. We are so excited to have you back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both for having me. It's always lovely to talk to you.
Yeah. So you mentioned this patch last time. Why don't we just dive into it? We're going to ask you a lot of questions about it today, but you had told us about, your mom's inspiring health story. Maybe you can just touch on that, and there's probably a lot of updates since then too, I can imagine.
Yes. So that was back in May of 2023, where it kind of came around again the second time that I had heard about it. And because of my mom's health decline, I started investigating and who I had heard it from. And because of being in this space here, this quantum biology space where light is paramount, it only made sense for me to look into it. And the person that ended up really sharing it with me, her background was it was Diane Hunt. She was a cardiac surgical nurse for 20 years. And because my mom's health problems had to do, well, she is multifactorial, but one of the biggest ones was her heart. And Diane had been with this company for a year and a half, and she started sharing stories with me of people she had seen who had heart problems and all of the changes that happened with these patches in a year and a half, like she had never seen in her career as a cardiac surgical nurse. So I know exactly what she saw in the OR. We had the same background, obviously not the exact same experience because I didn't do 20 years in cardiac, but I know that the changes she was sharing with me that I was seeing from actual investigations and test results was not anything that I had seen in my entire career without any kind of external intervention, let's just say like an artificial heart pump or something. So that's why we got my mom started right away. There was absolutely no downside to it. They were looking at heart surgery for my mom, and with the patches, really, I mean, I know we'll get into this more, but the main mechanism of action is reflecting our own light back into our body. So nothing is going into our bodies from these patches. It's using the innate wisdom of our own body to support and help and enhance the healing that we got started. And so myself, having worked in the medical field for 30 years, knowing that healing does not happen overnight, despite what society thinks. And sometimes with surgeries, unfortunately, it kind of looks that way, but it's not really real. and all the medications that are given, I was prepared to, give it time. Again, there's a time frame for healing with using these patches because everybody's different, because everyone's body is different. And I was shocked because I walk with my mom almost every day, and we'd walk at a painfully slow rate. And I say that because I'm very active, I'm very fit. So it's noticeable for me how slow we would walk. And of course, I'm walking with her and my dog, so that's okay. The dog's sniffing. But within 2 weeks, I was shocked that she was walking significantly faster and speaking to me at the same time. Normally, she's so short of breath, she didn't have the ability to walk and talk at the same time. So she's talking to me while she's walking at a faster rate, which again is still shocking to me. And then within 3 weeks, she came over to my house with some abnormal lab results, which of course you never treat family members. And so I told her to go to her primary care physician, but I looked at them and I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to lower your thyroid medication. And that was like the least of what I was worried about with her problems. And sure enough, he lowered her thyroid medication. So that was after 3 weeks. Again, that was very surprising to me. And so for myself, I started the patches at the same time, and I didn't have anything overt that was problematic, but I wasn't seeing changes like that. So again, just goes to show, and I'm kind of alluding to the fact that everyone sees or feels things in their own time, depending on their body. But my mom also started noticing like spider veins and varicose veins going away. She had a lot of skin issues, dry skin, patchy skin. She's on a lot of different medications and blood thinners and stuff. And those started getting, I wouldn't necessarily say going away, but I would say like 80% gone now. So now she's been on them for 8 months. So this is kind of over time. Her energy and her mood is significantly better. As one can imagine, she's in her 80s, she's 83. And I think most of us in society have been conditioned to believe that, oh, as you age, you just don't feel great. And you just kind of, everything starts to fall apart. And that's just to be accepted. Right. And so I think that's where she was at in her mind. And now she doesn't feel that way. And she would see her friends, and one of her friends' husbands was like, "What are you doing? You look amazing." And she said, "My daughter has me on these patches." And he said, "Just get me some." He didn't ask any other questions. He just said, "Get them for me," which was so, it's kind of cute. But yeah, and that her hair is coming, like she's got a lot more hair now. And again, as we age, she's 83, there's that kind of the thinning process. She's starting to lose weight and fat weight, not just kind of overall weight. And that has been something she's been struggling and also sabotaging herself for decades, which I think, happens to most of us. But again, noticeable for me, which is significant because, she used to go up and down 10, 15 pounds, and she'd ask me and I'm like, I don't notice anything, sorry. But now this is noticeable to me. So I think those are the big ones. She did have some joint pains that sometimes were migratory, but again, sometimes she'd stick the patch right on that place and, it would be gone. So she's a lot more active. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's my mom's story. And if you don't mind me, I don't know if there's a question that you had in there, but what I was going to say was coming across these patches and learning about the science and the mechanism of action was so very exciting to me that I couldn't stop talking about it especially because I started seeing things with my mom with my very own eyes.
Mhm.
And I started sharing with people around me who were friends and, some acquaintances that I knew were dealing with severe or significant health struggles that weren't really getting anywhere with either the allopathic treatment, or they were waiting, for years for investigations or treatments. And so I was just sharing, asking if they would be interested in, this alternative therapy. And, I don't know, I would just say that there's really nothing to lose. And so people started trying it and they were having incredible results, like pain, sciatica going away in 3 hours, someone not needing their reading glasses in after 2 months. someone who was going through chemotherapy, who had a whole bunch of issues, going from getting up in the night 6 times to go to the bathroom down to 1 time, from going from sleeping 6 hours a night to 8 or 9 hours a night, going from using walking poles and, getting upset with a tiny, grade or like the concrete not being even, to now walking all over the golf course where we live, having this pain syndrome in his face that was so painfully couldn't brush his teeth, to it being completely gone after 9 days.
Wow.
Again, so many stories, but I don't want to, if you have questions. And
Yeah.
the point of that was I wasn't even thinking about, I started on it because of my mom. I wasn't thinking about sharing it, and I couldn't help but share it because the stories and the miracles were just kept coming, and they still keep coming.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. So we're gonna, yeah, so let's get into the patch and how it works. So we all know that the patch doesn't cure or claim to cure or right? It's actually what is being stimulated in the body. So we want to talk about that. So can you share with us first about why they call the GHKCU copper peptide the holy grail of aging?
Okay. So the company with these patches is over 20 years old now. And the specific patch that you're talking about, with this copper peptide, that patch was released in 2019. And that's called, as you said earlier, the X39, because it was David Schmidt, the inventor, CEO, owner, his 39th invention. So that's where that comes from. And that particular patch increases our own endogenous supply of GH, that stands for glycine, histidine, and lysine. It's the special copper peptide. And that copper peptide has 50 years of research behind it. So it was discovered in 1970 by Dr. Lauren Picard. And what he discovered was it actually resets over 4,000 genes in our genome, which is really, again, significant. Maybe I'm saying that, overusing that word, but it's quite unimaginable because we only have around 20,000 genes in our genome. And I mean, that was a surprise when it was discovered, but imagine resetting over 4,000 of 20,000. That's like 20% of our genome, it's resetting it to a younger state. And so I don't know all of the over 4,000 genes that it does reset, but the most significant one that is it's known for is the P63, which is the stem cell gene. And so that increases the activity of stem cells as well as the number of stem cells. And as for those that might not be aware of stem cells, I'm sure a lot of people are, because it's kind of a big treatment people fly around the world for and pay tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for. But stem cells are the cells that replace the dead and dying cells in our body. And we are constantly turning over cells, depending on where we are, where it is in the body, at different rates. And so we need stem cells to replace them. If we don't have that ability, then the breakdown just happens faster and we don't have that recovery.
And isn't there like a certain age where we don't have like so many stem cells left?
Yes. And, I was never taught any of this in my medical school training. Actually, when I went through, and I feel now I say that that's a while ago, but I know because I was in a teaching hospital here where I live, and I would ask the students and residents that come through all the time the same questions. So I know that they're still not getting the training to give these answers. But by the time we're by the time we're 30, half of our stem cells have gone dormant. And by the time we are 60, 90% have gone dormant. I'm almost there.
So this is literally like we put this patch on. I'm wearing it. So anybody watching, like you can see it on my hand. It's like the size of a quarter. So we are we put the patch on and it's like there's a light that comes on to wake up these stem cells in our body to do the healing, and then it just goes searching out for the inflammation. So I've been wearing the patch for some time and I don't always feel it working, but can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. And so that's a really, it's an interesting and poignant question because I get this a lot from people. You know, I've heard someone who is very well versed in the alternative healing space say to me that he wore the patch for a week, didn't feel it, and stopped because it wasn't working. And I said, well, I kind of said, not quite sure how you can say that after 1 week, but personally, you know, there's a lot going on in our bodies. We have like at minimum 100,000 reactions in every single cell going on every second of the day. We don't feel that. We're not feeling those reactions taking place. We're not feeling our pancreas releasing insulin. We're not, I mean, we feel our heart beating, but we're not feeling a lot of what's actually going on in the body. You know, we do get signals from symptoms, but you know, I would say that there's a lot of internal work that takes place and that goes on in the body that we're not going to feel. So resetting genes is not necessarily something that you would feel until things get to a point where the symptom you're experiencing changes. And so that's what I would say to people is, and really these patches work on everybody. It's a matter of timing
Yeah.
because every single person comes with a different genetic predisposition. We come with a different number of years that we've experienced on the planet. We come with a different burden, toxic load that we've experienced, whether it be, you know, physical, chemical, emotional, all that kind of stuff. So every person is very different with what's going on in their bodies. And the other thing is, every person has a different, every person's body is going to prioritize what needs healing in its own way. And so no two people are the same. So you might start wearing the patch because you've got a headache and you want your headache to go away, but your body says, no, no, we have to work on your heart first. We have to work on your lungs first, or, you know, your eyes. So your body's going to go to work where it's needed. And sometimes, a lot of the time, that means you might not feel it because it's doing internal work.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I'm glad you answered that because it's such a common question. And I think about like, I used to take a lot of supplements and like I wouldn't call it a supplement because it's a food grade like nutrient, but the PC, the body bio PC I take now. But like I take that and I don't feel it, but I certainly have faith that it's, healing my cell walls because that's why I take that. And yeah, I have things that I've seen with my own eyes that I know the patch is working, but no, thank you for answering that. Lori, I feel like I've asked all the questions I want you to ask.
Oh, yeah, I got a whole bunch more. Just okay, on the I know that this uses phototherapy, right? Like it uses like the reflection of our body's light. How is this different from red light therapy? Everybody wants to get a red light therapy machine and what we call photobiomodulation. How would you say this is different from that?
Right. And that's a great question. I get that question all the time as well as like, well, why can't we just go outside and use the infrared and infrared from the sun outside? Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
one of the answers I gave to one of the physicians, actually a vascular surgeon, that asked me was, if we lived like we were designed to live in the world that we should be living in without all of the toxic burdens, I don't think we'd need these patches, right? We'd be outside 24/7, completely connected to the earth, living in, harmony with nature. And so, yes, we've got these tools because we live in a modern society. What the red light, as you both very well know, right? The red light panels have good quality ones have 50% red light bulbs and 50% infrared, and usually two frequencies in the red and two frequencies in the infrared, specific to the research. And they target, the special proteins in the mitochondria to increase that electron transport chain, to increase energy production and make our mitochondria more efficient. So with these patches, and this is part of the patent, so I can't give a complete answer because I think that is in the patent, because these patches and the technology have a 20-year patent. We're 4 years in. but they reflect specific frequencies of infrared light that cause the physiologic changes in the body that, for example, the X39 increase the GHKCU. I don't know which frequencies. I don't know how he's done that. And again, I think that's part of the patent, right? But it is, in the center of the patch, which Andia was showing, that like white part, that is comprised of a different combination of organic crystals of salts, amino acids, sugars, oxygen, and water to form a crystal lattice such that it will reflect those specific frequencies of infrared light to increase that GHKCU. So to my knowledge, red and infrared light don't just increase GHKCU.
Right.
Yep.
Well, so, and the company, you've referred to the company. Did you say its name yet? Just to make sure.
Oh, I'm not sure if I did.
Yeah.
It's LifeWave.
LifeWave. Okay. And David Schmidt is the founder. Can you tell us a bit about him? How did he find this? Do you know
Yeah,
the backstory?
I know a bit of it, and he is half the reason that I absolutely love this company, because I know I have heard about some other type of patch companies that don't do anything like these patches, but in learning who's running those companies, I was completely turned off. And so, I would say the person behind the company makes all the difference in the world, and his heart and soul is incredible. Never mind, he's a genius and humble. But he never intended actually to market this to the public. He started out over 20 years ago as an independent contractor scientist and had a contract with the government creating emergency survival equipment for the Navy SEALs. And so one of the things was creating the very first patch that he made using light, so they would not have to be reliant on stimulants with its addictive nature and all of the side effects. So they could be awake, alert, and focused for their missions that would be however many, hours long. And that worked so well, they got him to create some other things. But to my understanding, 9/11 happened, and anyone who was not creating arms for the arms race was dropped by the government. So he no longer had that contract anymore. And through his networking and connections with people and physicians, he ended up connecting with, I believe his name is Jim Quick, the 4-time Olympian swim coach at Stanford in 2008. And they ended up trialing the patches at the time. So this was called the Energy Enhancer one, that first one that he created, on the 8 swimmers, I believe, 8 female swimmers. And the very first day, 6 out of 8 of them beat their own personal records. And then they ended up trialing them at one of the Olympics with the swim team. They had to call in the anti-doping team because they were, beating everybody and beating records. And they found nothing on the patches, nothing going in the body, because there is nothing going into the body. So that is how he ended up kind of bringing this to the public. And so there's a lot of Olympic athletes and professional sports players who wear these patches as well. So it's not just about healing conditions or supporting the body's healing. It's also about taking your health to the next level if you are so inclined as an athlete.
And
That's
who
and
who wouldn't want that, right?
yeah. And is this approved by the FDA? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good question, because that gets asked a lot as well. So it is FDA recognized. Having said that, there are 80 clinical trials, research trials that have been conducted on the patches. So there is definitely science behind it. I've been asked over and over again, are there randomized controlled, placebo controlled? Yes, there are. all of that research has been done. But my understanding is there's a bunch of different FDA levels that one can go through, which is really jumping through hoops, like in Canada with Health Canada. And so it is FDA recognized, like accredited, but it is not a quote unquote medical device. So, like you were saying earlier on, this is not intended to cure, treat, heal, prevent, or anything like that. It is a wellness technology, and therefore does not need those other, like, let's be honest, all those other, I don't know what you would call the trials that they would have to go through with the
Sure.
FDA would probably take 100 years and never get cleared to go to market because things work really well.
Yeah.
And I, I'm just going to say, I hope you're okay with me saying this, but people who do ask about the FDA clearance and accreditation, I mean, all you have to look at is so many of the other pharmaceuticals that are quote unquote FDA cleared, or whatever the terminology is. They've gone through all of this rigorous testing and they're on the market for 4 or 5 years. And then, oops, they get pulled because, oh, well, yes, ahead of time, they knew that they were going to cause heart attacks. They knew they were going to cause damage, but they ended up getting to market anyways. And there's just so many medications that are quote unquote FDA approved that are extremely harmful on the
Right.
market.
No, thank you for clarifying that. And a little bit ago, I just don't want to forget this. A little bit ago, you said, there are other companies and other patches, but this specific patch actually is a one of a kind. And there are, and David Schmidt has patents. Can you talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, so exactly. It is a one of a kind. There is nothing else on the market like this particular patch, the X39, that increases, that supports our body's increase in production of GHKCU and stem cell activity and proliferation. It is patented. Like I said, it's got a 20-year patent. We're 4 years into the patent, and that one was released in 2019. So he did start early on with that one. I mentioned the energy enhancer for the Navy SEALs, and since then was creating some other ones. For example, that one of them increases glutathione, our own endogenous glutathione. Another one that is for sleep that increases our own melatonin. So there's a bunch of those. And again, every one of them has their own patent, and it's a different combination of the crystals I mentioned earlier to reflect different frequencies of light to cause those changes. But yes, there is nothing else like these patches. Even if people think there are ones that can help, for example, with reducing pain, something like that, or sleeping, these ones, that's just kind of leading me to the fact that these ones help our body to heal. So again, one of the questions I get a lot is if I stop using the patch, are my symptoms going to come back again? Or do I have to keep using this for life? Like, for example, a high blood pressure medication and your doctor tells you to stay on it for life, or for diabetes. So with these patches, again, the X39, your body is doing the healing. So whatever healing has taken place, that's not going to just reverse. For example, and this has happened, cartilage has regrown. So when you stop using the patch, your cartilage is not going to just disappear. The aging process, depending on your lifestyle and your circumstances, will just resume like how it was before you started the patches.
Yeah, and you mentioned also the word lifestyle, which this patch is not to replace a healthy lifestyle. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and that's a really important one that I tell every single person I share this with, that it is a tool to help people. There's lots of tools out there, but a healthy lifestyle is really for me, I would say, the ultimate goal. But sometimes people are, so debilitated that they have trouble making changes in their lifestyle. And that's why, for me, these patches are such a nice transition, kind of helping people move away from the pharmaceutical based tools to something that is actually helping their body, will help them with their mood, will help them with their energy, with their sleep, and give them that motivation to then make those lifestyle changes, which really are what will maintain and sustain our health, right? Like that really is the ultimate goal, in my opinion.
Rachel, can you break down what happens in the first few days, like up until, like I know I've heard that we're recommended to wear it for, is it 1 month for every decade that you've lived? So in my case, it would be probably 6 months, because I'm not 60 yet, but I'm getting closer to when I have 90% of my stem cells dormant. It's just a depressing thought, but can you break down kind of what happens in the first few days and what someone might expect?
Yeah. So that, again, a great question. And like Andia was kind of mentioning earlier, we don't necessarily feel what's happening, right? We don't necessarily feel what's happening right away, but within the first few days, that is when over 4,000 genes start to begin to reset. And within 6 weeks, and again, there's topographical imagery, and we don't have that, but in one of the presentations, I think you're talking about, if anyone wants to see a presentation afterwards, you guys were going to link one, but there are visuals and literally images of brain becoming more balanced and more coherent only after 6 weeks of wearing the patches. Like reduced inflammation. Actually, I think in the image that I've seen, there's no more inflammation after 3 weeks, but there's a lot more coherence in the brain, meaning the left brain and the right brain are communicating better, clearly, and to the rest of the body. So that's after 6 weeks. And then after 3 months, I mean, a lot more stuff happens, but this is generally speaking, after 3 months, there is an increase in collagen production. And, most people kind of relate that to better hair growth. My hair is definitely like growing like wildfire, stronger nails, nicer skin appearance, like either the age spots or wrinkles and those kind of things diminishing. But again, you both know very well that collagen is the most abundant protein in the body. I think it's like 70%. And it's necessary for the infrastructure for our entire body, as well as the whole water network, right? Which is how light travels in the body. It's so key and so vital, that collagen, the collagen fibrils, creating those water nanotubules, which is like a super highway, right? I think is what Meredith calls it in the QVC.
Well, it's Carrie Bennett, I think, named it the quantum communication superhighway. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And so collagen, so very important. And then after 6 months, you actually start to see reversal in heart age. So not just the heart, but the cardiovascular system. So that includes like the blood vessels as well. I was talking about my mom with seeing spider veins going away and varicose veins diminishing. So that's quite significant. That's after 6 months. And what I have heard, because I attend a lot of meetings, I hear a lot of testimonials as well. What I hear over and over and over again is, yes, the recommendation is to wear it a month per decade that you're alive or have been alive on the planet. But everyone who wears it longer just keeps seeing more and more and more changes and better, like people actually getting rid of their prescription glasses, not just reading glasses, but prescription glasses.
Yep.
And gray hair reversing to brown hair, faces, people, what's that? Moles falling off. Yeah. Well, and just a little kind of insert a little tidbit about myself. So it's been 8 months for me. And there's a lot of things that I don't consider a problem. And I think people get so used to living with things, it's just become normal and they don't think of it as a problem in their body. But for example, I swam as a teenager and I was walking around pools in bare feet a lot, got athlete's foot. It ended up going into my toenails, and I tried topical oral antifungals for years and years and years. And then I just gave up because nothing worked. And so I just cut my toenails as short as possible because they're just really ugly. And, the other week I was putting my sock on, my nail got caught and I looked down, I took it off and I looked down. I was like, my nails look 60% normal. I have not seen that since I was a kid. Right. And I'm now 53. So it's, it's working on things you don't realize it's working on. My gums are not only not receding anymore, they're actually like, I don't want to say regressing, but reversing, like they're healing. And I was really worried about having to get gum grafts. They're just awful. But
Can I ask, so it's interesting, if you're trying to target something in the body that you want to heal, do you wear the patch there, or are there specific places you're meant to wear the patch, the X39?
yeah, so David Schmidt, when he conducted those 80 clinical trials, he did have specific points on the body where he put the patches, and that is more for methodology and reproducibility when you do clinical trials. And he chose acupressure points, which we know energy flows more freely, right? But really, they can be put anywhere on the body, anywhere that there's skin, that they will stick, because the body, they work systemically, so they will go to work where they're needed, regardless of where they're stuck.
Because I'm wearing one right now, and on the, like, what I call C7, the kind of bony the bottom of the neck, I guess it's the last of the neck, yeah, bones. But then Andia just said you're wearing it on your hand, right?
Yep. Because I
Yeah.
wanted to show everybody.
And I'm wearing one here as well. And yeah, again, if someone has a pain point, oftentimes you can just stick it right on the point of pain and it will help. Like I just got a message, and I'm just so thrilled about this couple, and won't go into too much detail, but one of the people in the couple was struggling with some severe debilitating issues, and pain has been a huge one, to the point of like screaming and moaning at night, not sleeping, and so on. And they tried a ton of protocols. And this person messaged me and said, I've never seen the partner sleep as soundly as they did last night. And I had just couriered, because their stuff hadn't come yet. So I couriered some to them so they could have them quickly. And yeah, they said that they haven't seen this person sleep and have such a comfortable day in a very long time. So it's just, it's about quality of life, right? Like that's what we all want, the quality of life, to be able to do the things that we want to do, and whatever that looks like, whether it's walking and being physically active, or not being in pain, and sharing company with loved ones, and traveling, or so many different things.
Yeah.
Health freedom, right? Yeah.
Giving people their lives back.
I just I have a friend, and she's in so much pain, and she had a surgery for it, and they had to reverse it. It didn't work. It's I can think of it right now. Yeah, I'm sure you know it, the name of it, where you have pain in your,
Trigeminal neuralgia.
yes, trigeminal neuralgia. And they call it the suicide disease, right? And it's so scary. And anyway, I think I have to find a way to get these to her.
That's
Yeah.
what this couple I mentioned at the beginning, this gentleman, that's what he
Oh.
had. That went away in 9 days.
But the thing is, you can't, like, I couldn't tell her, well, the same thing. It's going to be 9 days, right? Because to her, it might
Oh,
be 3 months, or it could be
right.
5 months, right?
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different. Yeah. I know the other thing too, I've heard about, you've mentioned, Rachel, you have to be, there's two things. You have to really make sure you're hydrated. Maybe you could speak to that. And then also to make sure you have enough copper in your diet while you're wearing these. Can you tell us kind of why, and maybe some ideas on where do we find copper in the diet?
Yeah. Okay, so the hydration, I kind of touched on a little bit with collagen, and mentioning that we want to be hydrated. And again, I know you both know this very well, that cellular hydration is not necessarily about drinking water, although we do have to make sure that we drink water in high quality, ideally structured, filtered, great water.
Vortex.
Vortex, yeah, exactly.
Loved.
With electrolytes, though, so that the water that we drink stays in the body. It primarily does go to our blood volume as opposed to the cells, but it does help with keeping water and that hydration shell around all of the minerals and electrolytes, so it keeps the water in the body. And the reason it is so important to stay hydrated is because that is how the light communicates in the body. So when we're not adequately hydrated, then it won't necessarily work as well as if you were hydrated. So that's a very key point, and it is crucial to add electrolytes, because just drinking water, like if you just drank 2 liters of water without electrolytes, you're just going to pee that water out, right? And so electrolytes, I usually say to people, that doesn't mean going out and buying electrolyte powders. I mean, if that's the only way someone's going to get them, then okay. But I usually suggest salt, right? And some type of unrefined salt, so it has all of the minerals still there. I mean, I use Redmond's real salt, and just whatever to kind of toleration, right? Like not everyone, like my son used to spit out my water when he would grab it because he forgot that I put salt in it. And now he's used to it. So he's putting salt in his water. But that's the hydration point. And the copper, and again, just to allay some people's kind of anxiety around this, I've had several people say, oh, copper's really bad to have in excess for XYZ problem. And so there is one condition where we have excess copper in the body. It's called Wilson's disease. And so that's kind of, in a sense, different from this, because the patch is not putting any copper into the body. So this is some of the miscommunication or misunderstanding that people have. The patch is not increasing copper in the body. The patch is actually increasing the production of that copper being bound to this protein, or it's a peptide because there's only 3 amino acids. So it's actually enhancing the combination and the ability for copper to be bound, which is how it works much better. It actually causes problems when it's unbound and it's free. So the patch is actually helping to bind the copper with the peptide. And so because copper is one of the components of this peptide, we have to make sure we have enough of it in our diet, which I think nowadays is actually not as easy as it used to be. So I think it's hard to have too much, unless you probably eat organ meats all day long every day. But basically I think in our diet in the early 1900s, we used to get 4 to 6 milligrams of copper a day. And now most people in North America don't even get 1 milligram in their diet a day. So the copper rich foods that, again, if people can tolerate, organ meats are at the top of the list and the most bioavailable and nicely balanced with the other vitamins and minerals. And then oysters, again, we know that that's like a great superfood all around. I can't handle oysters myself, but then there's seafood.
Not even smoked oysters?
I
No?
can't. No, I'd like have to plug my nose if I'm gonna
Oh,
So yeah, seafood, shellfish,
yeah.
avocados, nuts and seeds. So cashews are at the top of the list for nuts, and sunflower seeds. And then I know I do mention this, and I kind of, every time I say it, I feel badly because I'm not eating chocolate anymore, but a small square of dark chocolate is enough copper for the day, but I'm not eating it because of the caffeine.
Rachel, oh, sorry.
As long as it's fresh ground, not a peanut butter that has a bunch of added sugars and oils, but if you have fresh ground peanut butter.
Peanut butter, right?
or
Okay.
peanuts.
I was just going to say, you introduced us, well, made us really think about Jason Christoph. And so we both, yeah, with your self-sabotage coaching background. And yeah, we're both working hard to stay off chocolate because of what we've learned in terms, and also the caffeine, really the caffeine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've heard, I'm just trying to add to that list, black pepper, I've heard as well. What about like there's people that want to cook with copper pots, or they want to avoid cooking with copper pots. Do you know if that's safe? Is it bioavailable copper or
So first of all, my understanding is you have to make sure you source your quality copper vessel, whatever it is, because most copper cups, copper, jugs and stuff are actually lined with nickel, which is bad for us.
okay.
So, you wouldn't want to just go out and buy whatever kind of copper. You want to make sure that it is copper. So if you drank from a copper cup, real copper, that's great. I mean, copper does so many amazing things. I don't think that you could get an excess from that, but
And yeah.
I'm going to say that I'm not 100%. So,
And then one more thing, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but so many people are interested in wearing copper jewelry. Do you think that that does anything? Would it help the patch or work better?
I don't know about help the patch. I don't know about that, but I do know that lots of people swear by copper helping to reduce pain, like those copper bracelets and
Right.
copper pendants. I have definitely have heard of that working.
Mhm.
And I know that prior to there being a lot of stainless steel and silver stuff in the hospitals, it used to be copper, I think, like, highly antibacterial, antiviral. Yeah.
And with the patch, just an important thing to make sure we ask you today, are there any contraindications with the patch? Like can someone pregnant wear it? Or if somebody has any condition, should like Wilson's disease, like so, something like that. Is there anything weird things like that where people need to know they
So
shouldn't wear it?
the recommendation for who should wear the patch or who can wear the patch is based on the clinical trials that were done. So I think 21-year-old men and women and above. There have been no clinical studies done on children or pregnant women, so it can't be quote unquote recommended. But having said that, there are many people who are pregnant and who have children who have used the patches on children and pregnant women. As well, the one thing again that I think David Schmidt says is if someone has had a organ transplant,
Right.
it's not recommended. Again, there's no study that's been done on it. But when you think about having an organ transplant, the person will be on medications to suppress their immune system so they don't reject that foreign organ. So these patches are helping to support your immune system to, for lack of a better way of saying it, like fight or basically keep your body as optimized as possible from foreign invaders. And if you've got a foreign organ in your body, your immune system would naturally reject it. And so if you increase your immune system, theoretically, that's a possibility. I do know someone who is using the patches who's had, I believe it's a kidney transplant so far. Okay. The other thing is there are lots of people who have cancer. I know that, we're kind of encouraged not to use specific diagnoses, but people who have had cancer, who use the patches, it's always recommended to speak to one's own doctor, which again, I find that kind of difficult as well, because most doctors won't understand how the patches work. So it's difficult for them to give kind of adequate or proper advice. But when someone has cancer and they are actively using chemotherapy, again, chemotherapy is meant to destroy all cells, healthy and unhealthy cells. So it's like a destructive process. And if you're using the patches with chemotherapy, the patches are there to enhance and rebuild your body. So it is often suggested to wear the patches right up to before doing chemotherapy, and then maybe right again after stopping it. However, again, I know people who've worn the patches right through all of their chemotherapy and are doing very well. So it's not necessarily that it's a contraindication. It's not a contraindication, but again, sometimes oncologists don't want their patients on anything that's going to boost their immune system. And the patches are helping boost your immune system.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you have any more questions on specific to the X39?
No, I actually think we covered like a lot here.
Anything more you could think of that we haven't thought to ask, Rachel?
Well, I know that, this gives people their lives back and it gives people health freedom. And, it also actually helps people financially as well. I know that there's a business piece to the patch. Rachel, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I can share. So when I first, looked at these patches, it was 100% focused on helping my mom with her health. And I had no comprehension idea of, how the company was selling it. I didn't care how it was being sold. I just wanted to get my hands on this product. And so I just started sharing it with people, and I, because I was sharing it, that did bring in some money, because it is through direct sales. That is how David Schmidt set up this company, because he figured if he was going to go the route of, say, GNC, which was his original plan, it was just going to sit on a shelf and no one would understand the power of what it could do. And it would sit beside a supplement powder, and yeah, it would not be known. And so he went the direct sales route, and that helps the average person who's sharing it then get remunerated for sharing it. And that was kind of like an added bonus for me, because that wasn't my original intention, right? And then I kind of thought, well, if I can get my patches paid for, then it doesn't feel like money's going out. I'm having to pay anything extra, because most of the time people are concerned about, they've got for example, if they're going to a chiropractor, they've got to put money out. If they're going to a massage therapist, an acupuncturist, a naturopath, getting this, all of it's money going out, 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 right? And this way, really, you share it with 4 people that you love. I can't imagine anyone not knowing 4 people that is struggling with some kind of issue that could not be helped with these patches, and you get your patches paid for. Like I mean, there's business opportunity beyond that if people want to take it to another level, but even just for that, it's again, it's hard not to share because almost everyone is struggling with something. And it's amazing once you see people come out of that struggle that they might not even know they were in until they're out of it. And you can see them breathe and relax and feel so much better. It's just, you want everyone to feel that way.
Yeah. Well, I want to share a little behind the scenes for everyone. So, when Rachel was on last time, she had shared this kind of at the end of the episode. And when we all got done recording, right away, me and Laura were like, I was like, I need this patch for my mom. And in the moment, I remember like not really, like, I didn't think I was, I mean, I didn't know, I wasn't thinking about it for me at all. I didn't even know if I was going to wear it. All I wanted to do was figure out how do I get this patch on my mom? And
I'll refresh your memory. You started crying. You're like, oh my God, my mom. And it was like a powerful moment. We all kind of, yeah, it was pretty powerful.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I can share my just short testimony, and then Laura, you can share yours if you want to. So since that time, I have been wearing the patch for a little over 4 months, and so has my mom. Now, my mom has polymyalgia, and so my mom's the pain in her legs was so bad that when she would wake up in the morning, so she sleeps upstairs, she'd wake up in the morning and she'd spend like a couple hours upstairs because she couldn't walk down the steps. That's how bad the leg pain was. And she had pain all over, but at the time that I gave her the patches, the pain was mainly in her legs. And then she was also taking prednisone, and she was on 3 pills of it. And if anyone knows what that medication is, nobody likes being on that. So the goal has always been to get off of that. Now, since she can walk down the stairs, and I actually was asking her, and this is so funny because, sometimes we don't even understand like what's happening. I had asked her multiple times, "Hey, mom, how's it going with the patch?" Like at like maybe month 2 and 3, and I was at home with her, and she was actually in an appointment with someone to help her with her pain. And I had literally asked her that day, "Hey, mom, what's going on with the patches? Feeling anything?" She was like, "Nah, I don't think so. I mean, maybe a little," and didn't have much to say. And, I not gonna not believe her. Like, that's what she said. That's fine. And she's speaking to this woman, and I hear her say, "Yeah, I had really bad pain in my legs, and that's pretty much gone now. And but I'm still feeling pain in the upper body." And I'm sitting there on the couch like, "Oh my God, that is like amazing." And then, she'd also dropped down to 1 pill. So that, like, just like, even if my mom stopped wearing the patch, like, just getting her quality of life back. My mom's very active, and to see her like that it was just heartbreaking. And then, you all heard us on the podcast, and if you haven't, you can go back and listen. But Rachel mentions a book called Caffeine Blues. Well, I got that book and I read it so fast. Like, it's probably the fastest book I have read in a really, really long time. And so it just so happens I stopped caffeine on the first day that I started the patches, and I didn't have any caffeine withdrawal. And also, since putting the patch on, I've quit sugar and I didn't have any sugar withdrawal. Oh, there, Laura's holding up the book. And if you know anything about these withdrawal symptoms, basically both of them share really bad headaches, fatigue, things like that. And I knew, like, I had heard now at this point some other people talking about like the brain fog and the clarity, in 6 weeks that's lifted. I never really thought of myself as a person with brain fog. I mean, I knew I had like some ADHD tendencies. I was diagnosed with that a long time ago. And I certainly I felt a lift of something, but I didn't, it was like I didn't even know it was there. And until it went away, I didn't really understand. And then also my energy increased significantly. And I have always struggled sticking with workout regimen or even working out or moving during the day. Like I know it's super important. I'm okay going on walks, but like as far as lifting weights and doing other things that I know are good for me with the age I am, I've struggled. And for 3 months, I've done Pilates for 6 days a week, and I have no idea where this energy comes from, but it has to, it's like I'm a little puppy. The energy has to go somewhere, and I'm really really loving the Pilates on the reformer machine. Anyway, I also just really quick, I did need to get new eyeglasses because my eyes are starting to correct, and I no longer have period cramps, which speaks to my hormones getting back in balance. And I have suffered from very bad cramps my whole life. I used to basically would take 4 Advil every 4 to 6 hours for 48 to 72 hours straight until they would subside. And that was every month since I've been 16 years old. And I knew that those anti-inflammatory medications weren't good for me. So I would suffer like in the middle of the month, I would suffer with headaches or whatever, or pain or whatever I was experiencing, and I wouldn't take the medication because I knew I was going to have to overtake in a couple weeks when I'd get my period again. So, and also sleep has been a huge one too. So, what about you, Laura? What's your experience been? Oh, you muted. You're mute.
My phone rang, so I had to mute here. It's been good. I'm what they call a one patch wonder, because the first day I put the patch on, well, I better give you the background. Anybody, the loyal listeners of our podcast, friends and family, know that I had a pretty bad accident August 15th last year. Broke my tibial plateau in 10 pieces. Ended up having surgery September 3rd. And I'm trying to think of does anybody remember the date that Rachel came on the podcast? But maybe November? I'm trying to guess, but it had been a while since my surgery. It was at least 6 weeks, I would guess, but I had persistent swelling in my ankle. I knew I would have swelling in my knee, obviously, right? The surgery it was at the knee joint, and put the patch on, and I think it was in the morning because I wanted to get my money's worth out of the patch and get my 12 hours. And I was just doing, busy, doing my day. And then I could still remember I was in the guest room because I still couldn't sleep upstairs. I couldn't do stairs. And you took off my sock, and there was no swelling, completely gone. And then I thought, okay, well, this is really cool. Well, we'll see tomorrow, right? Next day, no swelling. And then there was a few days where I forgot to put the patch on, like for more than one day. It has never come back. So I was what I'll give you why it was so significant. I mean, it's horrible to have swelling in your ankle because you're worried about walking and fitting in shoes. But I actually, I showed a few people, and people who had had surgery and had some metal put in, and they went, that might be they damaged a lymph node, and that's just what life is going to look like for you, right? And I mean, I just had so much trauma to this poor little leg, but it was like, this is one more thing, right? And so to not have that swelling in my foot, so I'm super, super happy with that. The other thing, I've had other improvements, but I have been doing two things. One, I've added another patch called the X49, and also I've been doing Serothrive. So it's red light therapy on the brain and on my belly, and also on my knee. So it's hard to say this improvement is, from the X39, but I have like same thing. The brain fog is dramatically improved, which is so nice because a lot of people associate that with menopause. When going through the stage of life that I'm at right now, I thought I was in menopause and had a little visitor back. I was like, okay, is that the patch? I'm not really sure. But there's been this one symptom plaguing me. I've been honestly sailing through menopause for this time, this year that I thought it was. But the one thing that has plagued me is during the night, I'm I'm warm, and I call them warm rushes. I can't call them hot flashes. It's not really warm enough, and I'm not sweating. I don't go red, but it's enough that I was waking up often in the night, and it was really hurting my sleep. And it was really, the time of it was the first week that I wore the second patch, the X39. So I'm giving that the credit. The other thing is I've been able to sleep in a high, what I call non-native EMF. It's only been tested once. So I want to hold out before I really claim that one, but I was able to sleep in a resort where I had my meters and I tested, and I was not happy with the level, that I couldn't mitigate it further down. It was still a really high level, and I slept great. And so, yeah, when you guys get, I don't know yeah, you're both younger than me, but when you get to this stage, these things will be more significant to you, because it's just so good to feel good. And just because, sleep is everything, right? When you sleep well, you feel so good. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah. Well, I think we're coming near the end, and we just really want to make sure people know how to reach you, Rachel. Do you have a website? I think we had it in the show notes before, but we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Website, Instagram. Can you just remind us of those?
Yeah, I do. So my website is rachelmauricemd.com. So my name, md.com. And then my Facebook is just my name, Rachel Maurice. I don't think I put MD on there, but my Instagram is Rachel_Maurice_MD. And then I actually have an app that's kind of soft launching. It's an app, it's only available on Apple right now. The Android is still, Google's still kind of a bit challenging. But it's my name, Rachel Maurice, the unconventional MD.
And what does the app do?
So the app, what I have, it's sort of an ongoing process right now. It's where I'm going to be launching my paid program, but right now everything is free on it. So it's got, for example, my product recommendation page. It's got a bunch of videos. It's got everything like my socials linked up to it. I have podcasts that I've been on. So your podcast is on there, and then I'm going to put this one on there, and any free guides that I have, free articles, kind of health tips and stuff like that. That's what I'm kind of building right now.
Yeah, it's really lovely. Everything's all in one spot. I'll make sure I link it for sure.
Well, it's that time to thank you. And I came up with four big areas to thank you. The first is just for being just so authentic. You told us in the last podcast, you went through quite a journey during COVID, and just want to, again, thank you for your courage of conviction and ability to pivot. I also want to mention the fact that I think we may have then, but if we didn't, we want to put you in the quantum mom category, but also add you to the quantum daughter because you really have helped your mother. I wish we could all, have our mothers listen, and our mother-in-laws, and be open to trying these modalities, because boy, she's really had a health transformation. Also, to just your passion, for sharing your health insights. And of course, today it's been all about LifeWave and the X39 patch, and helping to articulate the science. It helps understand why this little tiny patch is helping so many people. And lastly, this is a little bit of access consciousness. This is my modality that I work with, but for you being you and changing the world as the unconventional MD, because I think at the end of the day, you're helping a lot more people be quantum healthy.
Thank you both. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
All right. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy Podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakistmanwellness.com and Endia at endiaray.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.